You got the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365 on a faux football Friday. Faux because there's no football coming up tomorrow over the weekend. Usually you're leading into actual football, not the case. But we talking here on Birds 365, and on Fridays we talking with Paul Domowitch from the 33rd team and JAKIBSports.com. I guess Damo's Tommy Bahama wear like mine in the cleaners for the winter, getting all spruced up and ready for next football season.
It's cold out this morning, but windy. Cold.
Have you been outside already, Damo?
I have. Yes, I have.
Okay. You got a pooch too?
I do. Yeah.
Well, Damo's a big dog guy. That's how you know he's a good guy.
We have a fenced-in backyard, though, so I just open the door and let him out.
Yeah. It's too cold. I stepped out with my dog, but it was too cold. I said, all right. Yeah.
My dog's a priss. If I don't go out with her, she doesn't do her business. She just sits there. You got to actually leave the back porch to get her to go on the grass. But I want a coat, not a hoodie. But Damo, thanks for hoodieing up with us today. How many guys write for the 33rd team? Do you know? Give us a general number.
I just see some bylines.
Yeah, there's a. But by the way, can I interject, Damo? Because this bothers me. When people say, and you've heard this much longer than I have, the Philly media this, the Philly media that. We don't meet. We don't get together and talk with an agenda. So Damo's not responsible for somebody else at the 33rd team, just like Jody Mack's not responsible for what I say and vice versa, or Howard Eskin over at WIP, you're not responsible for that. Why can't people understand that? Everybody, there's so many fans. Oh, the Philly media ran so-and-so out of town, or Philly media is trying to undercut. How many times have you heard that over the years, Tama?
Quite a bit, yeah. Too many. What are we talking about, Jody? What did someone from the 33rd team do?
Did you see, first of all, do you know Derek Klassen at all?
Just, I've seen the byline.
So you've never met Derek. You've never had an individual conversation. You never exchanged emails with him.
No.
Okay, good. Because he put an embarrassing post up on that website yesterday, ranking the quarterbacks in the National Football League with only a scouting report under their name thereafter and not explaining how he did it. And he had Jalen Hurts in the second half of the quarterbacks in the National Football. Second half. Behind Anthony Richardson. One ahead of Brock Purdy, who we had 20th in the National Football League.
18th, Brock. 18th.
Yeah, so Jalen is 32 quarterback, Jalen 17, Brock 18, 2-19. But he had Anthony Richardson somehow ahead of him. I'm surprised he didn't have Daniel Jones ahead of him.
Those 4 games were impressive. Those 4 games were impressive.
Just ridiculous in my mind. Not only the rankings, but the fact that they didn't explain it either, which I think is just takes away from its credibility. So instead of me continuing to beat up on your colleague, what do you think of lists in general? I usually like them, and I try and keep them in their proper perspective. But when somebody misses the mark and does as sloppy a job as he does, explaining why he puts his list together, it kind of demeans all lists. Am I overthinking this whole thing?
I despise them, Jody.
Yes,
which is why you won't see my. Which is why you won't see my name on any of them in the 33rd team.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah,
I sorry to interrupt you.
It's lazy journalism. Okay,
yes, that's it is.
It's a quick way. I mean, they do it to get hits. You know, everybody does it now in journalism, in sports journalism, and it's the worst thing that's happened to journalism.
Generally, I agree with you. But I do like a good list every once in a while because I'm not only a I'm a half a journalist. I'm not a real journalist, but I hold myself to some journalistic standards. But I'm also a fan, and I think fans enjoy lists, and that's why they occur. If they had asked you at the 33rd team, we're going to take our 30 experts. I don't know how many guys you got on staff, but they deem these 30 individuals the experts. And they asked you to put a list together so they could put a compilation list together. Would you decline?
If they were paying me, sure, I'd do it.
Okay.
Well, that's what if you ever see my name and you've seen my name on top by blah, 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 that means I was ordered to do it.
Yeah.
Damo is 100% correct. It is lazy. It is annoying, but fans do like it. And from a talk show perspective, it's a little bit different. And I shot myself in the foot, Damo, because I brought this list up yesterday, trying to get Eagles fans fired up because
Yeah.
one was way too low. But I mean, my general feeling on list, and Jody knows this, is just go to the next one if it upsets you. There'll be a next one, and that you'll probably like that one. It's just one dude's opinion.
I'm not sure, but I mean, because I don't look at it regularly, but we may have run quarterback rankings weekly during the season, which is like the most mystifyingly stupid thing I've ever heard of.
Come on, you throw 3 picks, you should drop down 4 spots on the list.
Yeah. Well, power rankings in general, even teams. Think about power rankings this time of year. Think about it. We're not even the free agency. We have no idea. There's 30% turnover. We don't know who's getting drafted where, who's signing where, and people are out there doing power rankings, and other people are getting upset over them. There's going to be 30% turnover. It's absurd, but it is what it is. People like them.
And I'll let my fan flag fly here. I do like them at this time because you know they're going to be changing. So what position are you starting from? Here's what your roster looks like. Here's what your probable losses are. Here's where you're going to need to upgrade. All right, where are you actually starting from? And then a power ranking list in June all of a sudden holds a lot of sway. When you moved up, haven't played a game. You have not played a game between February and June, but you could go from number 24 to number 8. That'd be pretty damn impressive. I'd want to give that general manager a raise.
I did do power rankings for 3013 for a couple of years. But what I did was every week, along with the rankings, I would have good news, bad news for each team. After a game or after the draft. But that's the extent of lists for me is ranking teams. Going beyond that just seems foolish.
Yeah,
I like it, and I get kind of upset.
There you do, Jody.
Someone misses the mark as
badly. You're all for it
as badly as your guy Derek Klassen did.
Missing the mark, Damo. I got to get your thoughts on this. Nick Sirianni was pictured at Geno's having a little bit of lunch with Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. Doug Nussmeier got the invite too. Kevin Patullo. So we know Kevin's back. But that's as good a confirmation as you're going to get.
We're ranking cheesesteak places?
Well, yes, many people did, because anytime they're getting insulted for going to Geno's.
Exactly. If I'm the lead guy at Pat's, you'll never get another discount, Eagles.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm going to hold that grudge for 10 years.
Well, forget about
down to this corner and took a picture across the street. You'll never get a discount at my place again if I'm Pat.
Forget about Geno's versus Pat's. Then you have the cheesesteak snobs. Well, you can't go to the high profile, but you got to go to some hole in Northeast Philly. So all that starts, but that's kind of goofy. But why won't this team? And I used to doubt the Dallas Cowboys hired Mike Zimmer and had him available to reporters the next day. No other teams, have hired their coordinators. They take a week, then they announce it and they give them the reporters. The Eagles, no, absolutely not. They're still talking about competitive advantage with Vic Fangio, who's been around since the 18th century? I don't know. Vic's been around for a long time. Nobody's surprised by Vic Fangio. Kellen Moore's been an offensive coordinator for how many years?
5 straight years running.
What are they hiding?
Yeah. Well, they did the same thing last year. I think Desai wasn't available till April.
I think they were trying to hide Desai.
2020 hindsight, huh, John?
Yeah.
I blame part of it on the ineptitude of their PR staff, and the other part of it, I think a lot of it emanates from Howie. He just
Howie more so than Nick, because Nick's the one who's got to verbalize competitive advantage, and he does. That's how he whispered in his ear going, we can't give anybody any information. Don't you dare. Really?
I think it's more Howie. I mean,
Really?
Nick was an assistant for a lot of years. He knows, let these guys talk. I don't think he has a problem with that. So, I mean, I think it comes from the PR staff and Howie.
Yeah. It's
Is it you two reporter guys? Is it a league mandate that coordinators must be made available every week?
Yes.
Is that a league
during the
mandate?
season? Yes.
During the season and during training camp, I believe,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. Once a week during camp and during the season.
Well, I wasn't down there this year, John. I mean, I know there was also a mandate from the league that you had to make all assistant coaches available on a regular basis. Did they abide by that?
Yes and no. You had to request them. So, you essentially got vetted for your story idea. So they technically, nobody complained because what are we going to complain about? It's only going to create more trouble. And
Right.
how much do you want to talk to, no offense, but how much do you want to talk to Jason Michael that you do it a couple times during the year and everybody's happy.
Right.
Now there's certain situations where players, but they don't want guys talking about head coach issues or coordinator issues. So that's their big problem. So they don't want assistant coaches talking about player evaluation, things like that. So if you have a story idea, you can get somebody, but not by the letter of the law. They're not saying every month, here's the assistants. That's never going to happen, unfortunately. But, and I don't have as big a problem with that. But I do have a problem when you make big coaching moves. And hey, it started at the beginning when Nick and Howie were up there, Damo, because that should have been Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, and now that we have coordinators, and by the way, coordinators with experience, as I mentioned, so it's a little bit different than last year. You could argue competitive advantage. Nobody knows Sean Desai, very little experience. Brian was never a coordinator. Now you have guys who everybody runs a big scheme.
Yeah.
What's the advantage? It's very strange at times how they do things. But ultimately, I don't think it's that big of a deal other than the fans don't get to hear from pretty important people. I will say, and now that we look at, and we don't have the whole staff, well, we're starting to get a better feeling. It seems like more people are going to stay than I expected. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
More.
So I think Kevin's staying, Kevin Patullo. Jamal
right.
Singleton, I think, is going to stay.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith intimated Aaron Moorhead was going to stay. Yeah. Obviously, Jeff Stoutland. I didn't think all those guys were staying.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would assume I would assume the coordinators, had some input, felt they were comfortable enough with those guys. I would hate to think, that either Howie or Nick said, these are to his coordinators, we're not, these guys are staying, you're stuck with them. Vic was familiar with these people already since he spent some time in here last year as a consultant.
Yeah, but remember, Vic consulted for the offense, not the defense.
But he knew everybody.
I mean, I think the most important.
You mean like Damo knows Derek Klassen?
No, more. He actually knows the people. He actually knows.
The most important. I mean, the most important hire that I think that had to be done or replacement was getting a new quarterbacks coach that the new guy was comfortable with. You don't have that, then there's a unnecessary period of adjustment. But these guys have worked together previously at in LA, so I think they'll be okay there. Fangio's Fangio. I mean, he can work with anybody, so I don't think there's any problems there.
All right, Damo, we've talked plenty about the Eagles. I guess we'll circle back to the Eagles, but we haven't had you on since the Super Bowl came down. Did Travis Kelce get a free pass for assaulting Andy Reid on the sideline the other day?
Yeah, I mean, there should have been a little bit more condemnation of it. I think Andy quickly.
The only one who's really called him on the carpet is his brother. That's it. Jason did it on the New Heights podcast, but other than that, he kind of got away with it. And that
I called him a lunatic, Jody, on the show. Travis
okay.
is kind of wacky. Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet, but NFL Network usually runs the NFL Films mic'd version of the Super Bowl, and I don't know if it's been on yet this week because I want to hear what exactly the dialogue, how it went between the two of them during that moment. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, he should have gotten more heat for it. I think it's hurt his. I mean, everything's been positive about Travis this season with him and Taylor, and this was. I mean, I'm not gonna. You see it with other guys. I mean, I understand the competitive nature of the game and him wanting to be out there, and I don't think he meant to bump him. I think it was kind of incidental, but still, it shouldn't. It was. I mean, he deserves.
Well, I saw AJ chimed in about that. AJ Brown said he'd get. I don't know. He'd get banned from the league if he did something like that. AJ's very sensitive to that kind of stuff, but I do think. If they would have lost, I think winning cures all ills.
Story.
Yeah,
I think if they lose that game.
Yeah. I think it's as simple as that. I really do.
The fact that I don't know if it was after that. He had a few before that, but one catch for 1 yard in the first half.
It was there because it was about the missed block that caused the fumble.
Right.
Pacheco fumbled, and he was upset about not being on the field.
Several black writers around the country turned it into a racial issue. With if Travis were black, this would be a big issue.
I think it's a win-loss issue. I'm a white guy, but I think he would have got killed if they lost.
I agree.
Yeah,
much more so.
Yeah.
Andy Reid wins another Super Bowl. He gets to just shrug off the fact that a player ran into him during the game. His the overall ranking, his legacy in the National Football League just continues to skyrocket. How high is high for Andy? I don't know about you, but I did it on here on Bird 365, my WIP show. Mahomes has officially entered the conversation as the only guy who we can talk about chasing Tom Brady. That's it. There's no other quarterback. Does Andy Reid have a chance to chase down Bill Belichick?
Maybe Anthony Richardson, but go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long he's going to coach. I mean, I always thought he'd coach as long as he's got Patrick Mahomes. That may be the case. He's 65 now. He seems to be enjoying it. Andy's
definitely enjoying it. Yeah.
Andy would prefer to be, in the with his coaches than he would be at home. So, he's probably going to win a few more of these, and that would put him in the conversation with Belichick, certainly. With regard to Mahomes, you're right, and I think before his career is over, he will be regarded as the greatest of all time.
By the way, Damo, because the Chiefs won essentially the Super Bowl on the same type of play that killed the Eagles in last year's Super Bowl, speed in, speed out. Corn dog is he called it Tom and Jerry this year.
The play I think he called Tom and Jerry. The motion I think he called.
Corn, right? Yeah. The corn dog motion shuttle F is what he calls it. He called it the Peter King. So shuttle Flex player, which was McCall Hardman. Ain't that easy to defend. I was covering the Vikings with Chris Carter. They ran that same stinking play. How many touchdowns did Chris Carter score?
Yeah.
When you get going one way and veer back the other, and Chris wasn't the fastest guy in the world. It is so difficult. You think that makes people understand that it wasn't as easy as it might have looked at last year's Super Bowl when the Eagles lost to it? Looked worse.
I think so.
Really difficult.
I believe so, and I think it also, it makes Nick look foolish for his comments about motion earlier in the year when he was basically grudgingly saying, well, it gives you can kind of see if they're playing zone or man, but nothing else really that it helps you with. Yeah, it helps you with a lot, and you're going to see them run motion next year with Kellen Moore, probably as much as any team in the league.
You know the thing about motion, by the way, I can't even tell you how many times Nick has said that, Damo. It drives him insane. Now, when they were riding high at 10-1, he got a bunch of motion questions, and I know Elliot gave him one, and I said one behind the scenes, and he just rolled the eyes at us and like we're football idiots, which we are. But he did not like it at the end, and then all of a sudden the wheels come off. But he contradicts himself because he always uses that term, a wise man avoids all extremes. And he says, you never want to be bottom 5 in anything in the NFL. So I asked him, well, you're 32nd in motion. Why you're bottom 5? I mean, isn't there a better balancing point?
Yeah.
And, then he ignores the contradiction and goes into well, you can get information in other ways is what he would have said. But that's not the point. The point to me is not the information, because you can get it in other ways.
Right.
The point is the stress you put on the defense. You're testing the discipline of the defense. You can't just assume, oh, they're going to be disciplined. That's my problem, because a bunch of times they're not disciplined.
Yeah.
And they blow coverages just because of motion. Yeah, I think Nick's wrong on that one, but he's the football expert.
But he's not going to be the main dictator of the offense next year. So he can have his strength of opinion all that he wants. It's going to be our offense. If it's 51-49 Kellen's or Nick's, guarantee you that it's Kellen's over Nick's.
Yeah.
That's just my guesstimate from afar. Damo, we haven't had you on since you were able to talk about the Hall of Fame inductions. We had you on last week, and you were already knew what was going down, but you did your responsibility as a Hall of Fame selector and kept it to yourself. When Eric Allen, I think it was Peter King put it up, the length of discussion about each player. Julius Peppers was the only player who was discussed for a shorter period of time than Eric Allen, and he was, at least in my opinion, you please confirm or deny, a lock first-time entrant. Did Eric Allen get his just due in the conversation to potentially make it?
Well, I mean, I didn't time I have 5 minutes to make a presentation, everybody that.
Right, and there was only 5 minutes and change thereafter, at least per Peter King.
Right.
It was 10 minutes and change total.
No, it's funny in that room. Sometimes we have a long, honest, raw, candid conversation about people like T.O., like Paul Tagliabue, like I'm trying to think. There were this year it was Buddy Parker.
Buddy Parker. Clark Judge leading that
people like that where you've got back and forth. And then some guys, nobody says anything and you don't know what to make of it. I mean, sometimes it means everybody agrees with you. Sometimes the silence is deafening and you're like, ay. I mean, the fact is, going in, I knew it was going to be difficult this year for Eric because he's a first-time finalist. He didn't make it. He was eliminated in the 15-10 vote, along with 3 other guys who were first-time finalists: Fred Taylor, the running back from Jacksonville; Rodney Harris, the safety from that played for the Patriots, and I'm forgetting one other guy. But it's really tough to go from, unless you're a first-time eligible guy like Peppers. It's hard to, after 18 years, you become a finalist like Eric did, and then go right into the Hall of Fame. I knew that was probably a long shot. I tried my best. I had, Troy Aikman, Phil Simms pontificating about his worthiness, but I knew it was, it didn't happen. I think he's got I like his chances next year. As he gets closer, a player only has 20 years of modern eligibility. I mean, they may extend that to 25 at some point. I've been lobbying for that. I don't know if they're seriously thinking about it because I think, a guy like Eric who suddenly gets on the radar too late is on the clock too quickly. So I'd like to see that happen. But I think I know from talking to people, he's got a lot of support in that room, regardless of the fact that he was, one of the first guys eliminated after we had the first vote. The problem with football, you look at that list. I mean, honestly, I didn't vote for Devin Hester. I had a real problem with the return guy in the Hall of Fame. Who wasn't good enough at his position, wide receiver, to be anything more than pedestrian. But 12 of the 15 guys that were finalists deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So, that's why it angers me when people look at somebody and say, what kind of setup is that? How can this guy not be in the Hall of Fame? Well, look at who did get in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Hester did.
Yeah, it's supposed to be hard. Because I'm a Jared Allen guy, because I know Jared, and he hasn't gotten in the Hall of Fame because guys keep coming up, and but he's a Hall of Fame player. I think eventually he'll get in.
Yeah,
but it's difficult to get in. It's interesting because you brought that up because I wanted to ask you, all you guys get crap when somebody's favorite player doesn't get in. Oh, Damo didn't do a good job with Eric Allen, or
one year
Ira Kaufman didn't do a good job with Tampa Bay, or does that drive you crazy? When has anyone? Oh, I'm not going to vote for so and so, but Ira put me over the top. I mean, Ira's a great guy. We haven't obviously you do a tremendous job. I mean, when you hear stuff like that, how do you take it?
It's frustrating, very frustrating, because they have no idea what's going on in the room. They have no idea how, the work I put in, I believe, Eric Allen became a semifinalist because I lobbied so hard for him. There are guys like Seth Joyner who should have been in that room and never got in. I wasn't going to let that happen to Eric. I got enough support. He spent 4 years as a semifinalist before he got into the room this year. And I think the next step for him is going to be the Hall of Fame. And I believe he's got 2 years of eligibility left. It's a similar path to Sam Mills. Sam Mills didn't become a finalist till late in his eligibility. And that works to your benefit sometimes because the guys in the room don't want to see a deserving candidate go down into the rabbit hole of senior considerations. So, because sometimes you never get heard from again. So I think that's going to happen with Eric. I think everybody's aware of what he's done. And I'm really hopeful that next year it's going to happen. But yeah, it just, you got a guy on JAKIB Sports, that Cilio, just worthless piece of crap. Who's telling me?
Now, wait a minute. I'm going to defend Cilio in that he is absolutely a bigger football expert than Derek Clausen. There's no doubt in my mind that he's better than Derek Clausen. That's the end of my Cilio commentary.
But that's exactly my point. Now, Dan's a shot guy. He's got his opinions. They ain't my opinions, and they ain't Jody's opinions, and. We're just because we're on the same platform, all too often. And you had it for years with the Daily News Inquirer guys. You don't necessarily think the same way as Jeff or Zach back in the day, or everybody's different, but everybody lumps us all together. It drives me, and that's what drives me insane. Yeah. But you Hall of Fame selectors got it worse because when somebody's favorite player doesn't go in.
You're all idiots.
Yeah.
Shame on all of you. Yeah. Wait a minute. I voted for. I don't care. You couldn't get him in. Yeah. You didn't wave your magic wand to get him in. Shame on you. Yeah. That's tough duty, but it's important duty, and we think you do a great job with it, Damo. As always, a pleasure to get you on. Hopefully the stuff is back from the clip. By the way, speaking of, look what I got on today. I didn't even know I had this one.
Is that an FAN?
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Oh wow.
That's old school. I didn't even know that was in the bottom of the drawer. 66. They've only been on FM.
On AM, for about
a decade and a half.
Does AM even exist anymore?
Yeah, slightly. this one happened to pop up onto the top of the pile today. But I'll get my Tommy Bahama cleaned. You get yours, and we'll see you in it next week, Mr. Domowitch.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Dama.
Paul Domowitch here with us on Birds 365. All right, we're taking time out. We'll get a quick commercial break in. Come back. One more thing I want to run by John before we get guest number 2 up. Who would that be? Hunter Brody from Broads Media and WIP. I got WIP t-shirts too. It just wasn't on the top of the pile. That's why I threw the FAN one on today. Hey, Birds fans, I've got an offer for you. Here's your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call one of their 2 managing partners, either Jim or Fran, and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!